Hi, I'm Joel Persinger from Practical Defense Systems. I want to talk with you about sort of a tragic story. Well, it's not sort of, it's a very tragic story. Unfortunately, it happens periodically, and I think it's a great lesson that you and I can learn. So I'm going to share with you what the lessons are from this story. Now, before I get into it, let me clarify, this is a news story, and no matter who the news agency is, which one it is, they often publish stories without really knowing what went on. They don't have enough facts, but they race to get it published because they want to be the first one. There's this race to be out there with things that they can lead a story on, and if it's tragic, they tend to want to lead it quicker. That's why the old saying, if it bleeds, it leads, is very true. So I don't know, even before I start, I don't know if all the aspects of this story are true. Even if they're not, it does illustrate some things that we need to know as people who carry guns or use guns. So first of all, let's look at the story. This story appears in Newsmax, and the headline alone is somewhat alarming, particularly if you have kids or love kids. Girl 9 dies after she's mistakenly shot by robbery victim. Now, when I first saw the headline, the thing that leaped through my head immediately was, okay, maybe this victim was shooting at the robber as he's being robbed and missed. And the bullet continued downrange and it struck this little 9-year-old girl. But that's not what happened, apparently. However, does that happen? Yes. That's why we have a rule when we're training people: know your target and what is beyond it. Because you have to know what's downrange before you press the trigger. If you miss the target, if you miss the bad guy, the robber, the attacker, whatever, that round is going to continue downrange until it hits something that stops it, and you are responsible for any damage it does until it stops. Likewise, I always teach students, not only should you know what is beyond your target, what might be impacted if you miss, but also you should know what may come between you and your target. So if you're shooting at somebody across the street, a car may drive between you and you might hit the car and kill or injure an innocent person. Or for that matter, if you're in a crowded mall or inside a church or whatever, and guns are going off, people are running around, it's a panic situation, it's pandemonium ensues, and somebody may walk or run between you and the bad guy. You have to be aware of that as well. But from the sounds of things, that's not exactly what happened. So I pulled out some little snippets from the story. Let me show you those. Here we go. And I'll put a link in the description so you can go and read the story. You don't have to take my word for it. A man who had just been robbed at gunpoint at an ATM in Southwest Houston opened fire in an attempt to stop his attacker, but instead shot a 9-year-old girl in a truck driving nearby, police said. The girl later died at the hospital. Now, when I saw an attempt to stop his attacker, I thought, well, he's trying to stop the attack or he's trying to stop the robbery, but that also is not the case, according to the story anyway. So the story goes on a little bit further down to say Tony Earls, 41, was charged Tuesday with aggravated assault in the shooting, police announced. The guy who did the shooting, who shot the little girl, name was Tony Earls. And that way you know who we're talking about as we go through this. Now, the little girl's name, which is vitally important to remember, I think, was Arlene. Arlene is the second 9-year-old girl, according to this story, to be shot in Houston within a week. Ashanti Grant remains hospitalized after being shot in the head during a road rage attack February 8th. And then there's just a couple more of these just to kind of give you round out the story here. On Monday, this is what happened. On Monday, Earls and his wife were at the ATM around 9:45 p.m. when another man walked up to their vehicle and robbed them at gunpoint. That's what happened so far, right? And then what happens there? Okay, well, perhaps Earl gives them the money or whatever the case. I don't know. But it goes on to say in the story that as the suspect fled on foot, Earls got out of his vehicle and opened fire, including at a pickup truck he thought the robbery suspect had climbed into, police said. But the truck carrying a family of 5 was not involved and had been simply driving down a street near the ATM. So this guy and his wife get robbed. And rather than just give the money, the guy runs away, be a great witness, call the police. Hey, I've just been robbed. He went that away. He looked like this. He was this tall. He was wearing that. He went that away. The robbery victim decides to get out of his truck and shoot at the fleeing robber. And then, unsure of where the robber went, he picked a vehicle that he thought the robber may have gotten into and began shooting at the vehicle. There's so much wrong with this that it's really hard for me to know where to start. First of all, if you're in a sketchy neighborhood, or even if you're not, a lot of times going to an ATM late at night is not a good plan, because that's generally when robberies happen at ATMs. Okay, so, but if you plan on doing it, expect that you might get robbed and be very aware of your surroundings. And then if something looks hinky at all as you're approaching the ATM or while you're there, get in your vehicle and drive away. Don't stay there long enough for somebody to approach you and rob you. That's just a piece of advice I share with most people. The fight you can always win is the one you didn't get into in the first place. Now, if you're working security and you have to check on the ATM, or you're one of the guys collecting the money or whatever, then that's part of your job. You have to be there. But if you're just somebody who's a civilian and you're going to the ATM, maybe going tomorrow or planning better, having planned better and gone during the day would have been a better choice. But in any case, you got robbed. Now the robber has taken your money and has taken off. He didn't injure you. He didn't injure your wife. You didn't have to shoot him. All right, at that point, it's time to go, okay, as I said, he looks like this. He's this tall. He's this color. He's wearing this kind of clothing. And he was running, driving, riding a bicycle, riding a skateboard, whatever. And he went that way, officer. File a report. Count yourself lucky nobody was hurt. And if you got insurance that covers such things, file an insurance claim. Otherwise, you lost your money, and hopefully it was an inexpensive education. You'd have paid thousands and thousands of dollars for that education in college, and you just got it at the ATM. And it only cost you whatever you had in your wallet, $1,000 or less, okay? That's the way to address that. If somebody is threatening you, at the moment that they're threatening you and they're presenting a threat of death or great bodily harm, serious bodily harm, that's when you have the right and the legal authority to use deadly force to defend yourself or another person, your wife, your kids, some other person who's being threatened, whatever. Once that threat of violence ends, you don't have the right to use deadly force. So when the burglar has turned on his heels and bolted down the street, or is no longer robbing you and is leaving, you don't have the right to shoot at that person. As far as I know, in every state of the union, you cannot shoot a fleeing felon. There was a time when you could, but that was a long time ago, and legally you cannot do so anymore. So if the burglar is left and you're sitting in your truck with your wife, the best choice to make would be start the truck, put it in gear, get out of Dodge, get where you're safe, call police, give them a description, direction, time you saw them, mode of travel, direction of travel, all that kind of stuff that they want to know. Be a great witness. And count yourself lucky nobody was hurt. Yeah, it cost you some money. Get over it. Get used to it costing you money. If stuff happens that's negative, that happens a lot, so that's just one instance of that. Now, this guy gets out of the truck and he shoots. According to the news story, he's shooting at the burglar, or robber rather. And then, for some reason, he thinks the robber has gotten in a vehicle. So he begins to shoot at the vehicle. So you have to ask yourself some questions. Does he know who's in the vehicle? Does he know how many people are in the vehicle? Does he know what age group they might be? Does he even know for sure that the robber got in the vehicle? The answer is no, because the robber didn't, apparently. And so now he's shooting at this truck that just happens to be driving down the street because he suspects the robber's in there. In the process of doing so, he kills a 9-year-old girl who is innocently sitting in the back seat of her father's truck while they're driving to this little girl's favorite restaurant, apparently, if you read the rest of the story. The father said to everybody in the car, "Get down," because he heard the gunshots. Well, the little girl was listening to her music or whatever, had her headphones on, didn't hear her father. She's the one who didn't get down as he stepped on the gas pedal to try to get away. And she was the one that was hit and killed. It's a tragic tale, and unfortunately it does happen periodically. But when you're looking at this as the gun owner, there are some lessons to take away from this. One, I've already explained. Don't shoot at fleeing felons. You only have the right to use deadly force at the time that a threat against your life or the life of another person, or a threat of great or serious bodily harm that's going to hospitalize you, is actually occurring. When you have a justifiable fear of that threat at that moment, that's when you can use that level of force. Otherwise, you can't. If the bad guy's running down the street trying to get away, you don't get to shoot him. If you do, then even if the guy in the truck had actually hit the bad guy, he'd still be going to prison. He still would have ruined his life because he would have shot a fleeing felon. You don't have the legal authority to do that. Can you imagine trying to explain that on the stand in court? I shot the guy in the back 6 times as he was running away. Seriously? Why? Well, because he stole my wallet. There was $500 in it. That's not going to go well. That's a cul-de-sac in your life, okay? That's just not going to go well. So this Mr. Earl has now taken the life of a 9-year-old girl. He has created a tragedy in the lives of this girl's family that will never, ever, ever, ever be completely recovered from. This family will be traumatized about this for the rest of time. Until they die, whenever that may be. The kids, the mom, the dad, the grandparents, the whole stinking family is going to be devastated by this for a very long time. And in addition, he's robbed his wife and any kids he has of their father, and he has ruined his own life. He's going to end up going to prison. If he doesn't go to prison, it'll be astounding. He should go to prison. Yes, he was the victim, but then he victimized. He became the victimizer. He went from being the attacker to being the victim to being the attacker. We don't get to do that. So I encourage you, I'll put a link in the description for you to read the story and then look at it and go, wow, okay, you know, when you see stories in the news like this is when you want to look at them and go, what can I learn from that? Because I carry a gun at work all day if you're working in security, or because I carry a gun like I do. I don't work in security, but we do in a security training firm, and I do carry a gun all day, every day. Or I have a gun at home for home defense. What should I learn from this? Well, I would say there's some simple takeaways here. Be aware of your target. Was he aware of his target? Did he know for sure that the bad guy was in that vehicle? No. But he shot at it anyway. Be aware of what's beyond your target in case you miss. When he was banging away at this guy as running away, was he thinking about that? Well, I suspect he wasn't, since he shot at a random vehicle. And probably not. And as I said, also be aware of what may pass between you and your intended target, whatever that may be. Understand that you can use deadly threat when you are facing, and at the moment you are facing, a threat of death or great serious bodily harm. And in no other way can you use deadly force. The only time you can use it is for that. And that's to repel an attack that you have, that an ordinary person, if put in the position you were in at that moment, would agree was a threat to your life or something that was going to seriously harm you, cripple you, put you in the hospital, or somebody you're defending. And then once that threat ends, you don't have the authority or the right to use deadly force anymore, so don't start shooting at people who are trying to get away. Let them get away. Count yourself lucky that you weren't hurt if you weren't. And call the cops and say they went that away. They went that away. Now, obviously, if, just for clarification, I mean, there are going to be situations where you can pursue somebody if you wish. So if you've got an active shooter and that person is just pell-mell shooting people and they shot at you and now they're no longer threatening you, but they're shooting at other people, can you act? Sure, but that's a totally different situation than the one we're talking about. Now you can see the comments already giving me every possible scenario where you can shoot at the guy. Okay, I get it. There are others, but we're talking about this one. We're talking about this one, okay? How much is your life worth? Is it worth more than whatever was in your wallet when it was taken? Is it worth more than your car when the guy carjacked you and you gave him the keys and they drove off the car? If it's worth more than that, then don't shoot at them because you're going to ruin your life. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up. I don't want to go, I've probably preached enough here, but this is important because it costs the life of a 9-year-old girl. I have kids. You may have kids. And if you don't, even if you don't, kids are precious. You were one once. So there you are. Have a great week. Stay safe. Thank you so very much for all of your support, and thanks for watching.